and that would be the Super Bowl, where the EAGLES Eagles did a thing. My Eagles, not Harrison's, not Sam's, as these two idiots decided to text me and said our team during the game. I'm gonna need both of you to stop this shit very early and often. But fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Fight, Eagles, fight. Score touchdown 1, 2, 3. Hit them low, hit them high, and watch our Eagles fly, fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Yeah. EAGLES Eagles was one. I am going to be absolutely insufferable on this podcast. So if you do not want to listen to this, this is your time to get off here because I am going to talk my shit today. So leave now. I gave you an opportunity. If you decide to say, that is on you, not my fault. Gentlemen.
You know what's funny? There was a point in our conversation last night where it was like, okay, we're not going to jinx it, but this game's locked away. And then I said to a group of my friends who listen to the podcast often, I said, at this point, Brandon's going to be insufferable tomorrow, either if they win or if, the ungodly happens and they lose. And I'm here for it. It's must watch, must listen, whatever it is. So congrats, Hayes, Harrison, to your Eagles, man.
Sam, don't you do this shit today. Don't you dare do this shit today.
Why can't you just be like embracing the brotherly love? Your team has reached the highest pinnacle in arguably all of sports, right? A Super Bowl.
See, there's a thing about brothers. And you have a brother. You have a brother. You have a brother, right?
Yes, I do.
When you were younger, I'm sure you and your brother had little fights and whatnot. This is a consistent fight that I'm having with you two idiots here as brothers, that you keep talking and try to make both of you Eagles fans every once in a while. Sam, you're a goddamn Jets fan, and Harrison, you drive the bandwagon. Stop this shit today. Now, stop it.
Why can't I just be happy for you, though?
No, you can be happy for me.
Family members that are Eagles fans, I'm very happy for them.
Be happy for me, but you're going to stop saying you guys are Eagles fans because I'm going to choke you both. Both of you. Both of you. Okay? Now, let's get into this goddamn game that the Eagles put up 40 points on the damn Chiefs' head. 40 points. 2 games in a row. 95 points. In total from 2 games, from the NFC Championship to the Super Bowl. 95 points. Where was Patrick Mahomes, Kermit the goddamn Frog? Where was he? On the ground.
On the ground.
On the ground. Harrison, I remember you and I saying that the Eagles were going to win by 2 scores. They won by 18 points. And it really wasn't even that close. The reason why the Chiefs scored at the end is because the Eagles were up by so much, they put their secondary in. And the Chiefs scored some garbage time touchdowns. So, gentlemen, I'm going to tone it down just a little bit before I bring it back up again, because it's going back up. So just be prepared for this. What was your thoughts overall just watching the first half of the game? What did you think was going to happen? Were you in complete shock and awe? Where was your mind at after even just watching the first quarter and then going into halftime?
What was the score first quarter? 17-0? Was that halftime?
No, 7-0. 7-0 was the end of the first quarter.
Right. Yep. I thought the Chiefs, I know they put up 40. I thought the Chiefs defense looked pretty good until it didn't. But yeah, no, I was like, oh, they're in trouble. They just can't get a rhythm together. Clearly, Mahomes, we referenced it, was on the ground most of the game. There was no offensive line to help him at all. The receivers couldn't get any separation. And I didn't even realize until Kevin Burkhardt mentioned it, and we have it in the notes here. The Eagles didn't even blitz. They were just rushing 4. That means you drop all those other guys back, and yeah, of course you can't get any separation. Like, how do you win a Super Bowl against the best quarterback of this era and not blitz him once? And like, how bad is the offensive line?
Only 6 teams in the history of the Super Bowl have not blitzed once, and they all won. And they've all won. Man. Yeah.
That's just a testament to this defense. Could you imagine, Hayes, I know it's been a long, full calendar year for you, but like as an Eagles fan and the highs and lows, but like your secondary is rebuilt that well on the fly that within a season, like you can do that. Like it's just,
well, I'll highlight you there
to a great team.
I'll highlight you there because you've said it numerous times on this podcast, and I appreciate that you bring it out because I'm still in awe. You say it every single time. I don't know how the hell Howie Roseman does this or how the league allows Cooper DeJean to go 40th to the Eagles and allow the Eagles to get Quinyon, which they were going to get regardless with their pick, but then you allow them to trade back up with the Commanders at that to get Cooper DeJean. You allowed the year before, as we talked about on here, what happened with Jalen Carter is teams didn't do that because of what happened off the field in Georgia, and they just let them drop, and they dropped to the Eagles. The Eagles took a chance. Like, those are two key players that influenced this. There was three rookies on the field yesterday that all contributed highly in this situation. Cooper, Jean, Quinyon Mitchell, and then Jalix Hunt. And
I got this from Todd McShay because we're friends. No, I was listening to his podcast. The last 3 years, we've talked about it the last 3 years, but 4 first-round picks, all on defense.
Mm-hmm.
8 of those players, 8 of those draft picks of the 10 draft picks in the first round were all defensive players. Mm-hmm. 7 of them started. Nakobe Dean was hurt, and Blankenship's an undrafted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, Nakobe Dean would have started if he was healthy. Mm-hmm. So that's 9. Reed Blankenship, undrafted free agent, might as well. That's a 7th round pick. Like that. This is the type of thing. Like, and then you mortgage the future a little bit to make sure the cap works and you're signing all these guys, but you'll deal with it later.
Absolutely.
See, there's always a way. There's always like a parachute out of a situation like that. It might get lean for a little bit, like we saw with the Rams, but clearly, when you have a really good infrastructure and head coach and talent on the roster, and Les Snead's a great GM, and Howie Roseman is a great GM, and they'll continue to be efficient with the assets that they have. And it's just how there's 31 other teams that kind of let this happen. It's crazy. I mean, you got to play the game, and they played it, and
they played it well.
Kudos to the Chiefs in the sense of like a three-peat hasn't happened, and no other team's ever even gotten to the Super Bowl to like try to defend it. But to say in the present day that like this Eagles team, you're thinking about it from last year, like a whole year later, shut down Patrick Mahomes, and this offense is crazy. Like it just domination. Like,
Harrison, what did you think of the first half?
It all happened so fast, but slowly at the same time with all the commercials and the breaks. But it was just the Chiefs could never get any semblance of a rhythm. Nothing, no positive plays. I mean, they went probably, I think it was a stretch of 7 or 8 plays where they didn't gain any positive yards. That's insane, especially for, a Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid led offense. And it was over before it started. It felt like, you didn't want to say it was over at halftime, and
I didn't.
Respectfully so. That's fair. But yeah, to get 38 total yards in the first half, it just looked like, the Giants Super Bowl, years ago, Tampa Bay Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had no answers for both sides of the line. And that's truly was the story to me. Like, yeah, you have a great secondary, but that pass rush, being able to rush 4 and just get there continuously is just insane. It's diabolical. The Chiefs had their left guard and left tackle. They're, a little banged up across the line, and it showed huge. Patrick Mahomes literally had no time, like 0 time. It's not like he was hesitant, and later on in the game, he was hesitant for good reason. But to start that game, there was nothing. There was nothing there. No running game, no passing game. They just completely swallowed them in that first half, and it was pretty much over from there. So I thought, the Eagles were more talented, and if they were going to win this game, they had to win big. I didn't, trust I didn't want to kind of pick against Mahomes in a close game, as many people didn't. That was kind of the going into it, the train of thought for bettors and whatnot. But I didn't think it would look that way, especially with the Chiefs bottling up Saquon and questionable kind of Eagles decisions, just running straight into the line a lot of times. But it didn't really matter. Like Jalen Hurts made all the throws in the first half. Great play calling. They got the yards when they needed it, and it was over. It wasn't even really a fair fight.
Jalen just making wide open throws too. Like, not that this is not a criticism of Jalen Hurts. Like he was throwing like dimes, like, and there wasn't the contested ones were caught, and there were a lot in just wide open space. It was crazy, and so many times you saw Saquon in the flat, like running a screen or something, ready to get the ball, and Jalen's not even like worried about it, like because there's so much going on in front of him, and there's so many opportunities, and there's so many like, okay, he's got to check down there, no, and he doesn't. Like, and you know, there were some gambles there, yeah, for sure, but it was just they were in complete control from the jump there.
He was just untouched. Like the offensive line was almost had what was better, the offensive line or the defensive line? And both of them were incredible. And it's like, you know, you hate to break down football in like the simplistic term of like it's won in the trenches, but this game was literally
won in the trenches.
Like, and they dominated on both sides, and it was just clear. And there's nothing the Chiefs could do about it.
So sitting here and watching the game and seeing the Eagles start to go up the way that they did and kind of being all over them. I mean, as you guys know, I've watched every single game. So it was no surprise that the pass rush was able to get there. And again, they were the number one defense in the league for a reason. They forced the most turnovers in the playoffs. So I knew they were going to get at Patrick, and I knew that was the biggest thing that they needed to do. What happened when Patrick lost his first Super Bowl against the Bucs? It was the same situation. It's pressure. He couldn't do anything. So I guarantee Vic Fangio, being one of the greatest defensive coordinators, sat there and stared at that footage. Is like, this is what we had to do. But let's not forget, even earlier this year in the playoffs, when they played the Texans, Will Anderson was having himself a day against that. Don't think that they just didn't watch that tape and see how they were moving against them, right? The Chiefs' offensive line has been the detriment to their team for quite some time, right? It's been their kryptonite, not being able to protect Patrick until, you know, Patrick's able to do certain things, right? And he's always able to kind of put the bandage over certain situations. There's no way you can put a bandage on a really good pass rushing team. And the Eagles rushed forward, so the secondary linebackers kept everything in front of them. Also, the Chiefs are the least explosive pass team in the NFL, statistically, and they do more 20-yard throws than anything. So they're a dink and dunk type team, and that's where they break off stuff. Well, when you have a team that's just sitting there and pressuring you the whole time and allowing you to step up into the pocket, but basically it's a trap because you're running right into a Jalen Carter, you're running into a Mojo, you're running into Oren Burks, you're running into Zach Bond, so on and so forth. There's always somebody there, and they did not allow Patrick to kill them with the legs because that's what Patrick always does. When the line breaks down, what does he do? He uses his feet, especially in the playoffs. The Eagles didn't allow that to happen. But for me, I think the turning point for me was two things. Is one, having the blitz get home, and then seeing how the Eagles were aggressive on fourth downs. When they threw that pass to A.J. Brown, I already knew what time it was going to be on. It was, we're going to do whatever we have to do to win this game, and we don't care if it's fourth down, third down, whatever, it's that. The refs injected themselves on two early calls, which I think they definitely messed up on the call on AJ, and I think that call that they got back when they hit Dallas Goedert was a get back. And then it was just kind of smooth sailing from there. So they kind of justified that for people that were complaining about that. It's very clear for those that were listening out here. I know it's a joke. I know we joke. The three of us joke about the ref situation and whatnot. Are you guys done now? Are you guys done talking about it being rigged now? You can see it's not. You think they would let them win like that and let them get a mud hole stomped in their ass like that? I don't think so.
To be fair, I never thought it was rigged. I'm glad.
No, that's why I said the three of us didn't.
Yeah. I'm glad that the game progressed in a way where the AJ Brown, that penalty on him was didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And then the other one was on McDuffie, right? Like, so,
yes.
Yeah. It was kind of like, yeah, you're right. I thought of the same thing. Okay, give back.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mike Pereira was all over him, and they probably just let him play. So I'm glad there's not like a controversy surrounding this whole thing, and it's just like the Eagles were by far the better team.
Conspiracy hat. It's good for the long term narrative.
It is. I just think in all for the first half, I was still quiet about it. Like, I was excited, obviously, of several things that happened throughout that, but I was quiet because every Super Bowl that the Chiefs have won, they've always started by being down. And I was like, okay, this is the same story. I'm seeing the Eagles go up, and I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. And they kept pouring on. And each time, as we now merge into the second half, each time they got a possession, I was like, okay, this is the Chiefs. Here they go. They're going to turn it up. The pass to DeAndre Hopkins before the end of the first half. If D-Hop catches that ball, he's gone. Like, there's so much space in front of him, and he's one of the hardest people to tackle in open space. So the fact that Nuke wasn't even able to catch the ball, that's also another thing. Patrick was under duress, but he still was throwing some pretty balls being under duress, and his Kelsey dropping them. You got D-Hop dropping them, so on and so forth. I mean, the pick that he threw to Zach Bond, he was getting hit through still a pretty spiral, and Zach Bond had to dive to catch that for an interception, right? It was still a pretty ball, right? But you could tell that Patrick Mahomes was seeing ghosts, because if that was the case, he would have seen Cooper DeJean come out and get that ball, because he literally ran across his face to get that pick and then took it to the casa. Shout out to Cooper DeJean on your 22nd birthday. As a rookie, you get a pick six in the Super Bowl. Your first pick in the NFL is in the Super Bowl, and it's a pick six against arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL. Have yourself a day, young man. Have yourself a day. The exciting whites are back. White people rejoice. You have white DBs. You should be very, very happy for your kinfolk. As we got into the second half,
I mean, we saw these cracks in the Chiefs, cracks in armor all year. We pointed them out, and basically, I think we got to the point where we were just picking like Patrick Mahomes' aura, and like that's what they did all year. They played close games. They were not impressive all year.
No.
Like I can't point to one game where I was like, wow, they look like the Chiefs again. And
he said it himself. He said said, this is probably our worst team that we've had. Like, yeah, they proved that.
It is a testament to Mahomes and Andy Reid and everyone that they were able to kind of piece together this discombobulated season. Hollywood Brown gone before the season even started. Pacheco, Kelsey clearly looking,
aged, aging,
old, and the defense just not being what it was. And then this week's bugaboo was the offensive line, and that was a problem, as you mentioned earlier in the playoffs. But yeah, just some of the things Mahomes was able to do, like, is because he's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And you have it listed here: 25 pressures, 11 hits, 6 sacks. Like, if that wasn't Patrick Mahomes back there, it would be, oh my gosh, how much uglier would this have gotten?
Yeah.
There were some Houdini-like things he was doing back there just to try to create. But there's only a handful of guys in the league that even can do that. And, but just a testament to Vic Fangio and this defense, just a complete 180 from a year ago. And they certainly learned from 2 Super Bowls ago to not relax.
Well, not give Patrick any time, because that's the problem. You give Patrick or Tom Brady or Drew Brees or Peyton any extra time in any situation, or give them some sort of life, some air to breathe, they're absolutely going to take it and run with it. What I do want to talk about is what the Chiefs' game plan was, and that's the part that's kind of I've been going back and forth and understand. Like, it was very clear for the start with a defense. They clearly sold out to stop Saquon. They said 100% Saquon, you're not going to stop us. Jalen, you have to beat us, as Harrison mentioned earlier, right? But the problem is, every time Jalen plays the Chiefs, He does extremely well and can pass the ball and has shown that he can pass the ball. And what Steve Spagnuolo said in this time is said, Jalen, you got to prove that you can do it more than once to me. And he's done it more than once now. I actually have what I wanted to share head to head on what Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts have done. So in their 2 Super Bowls head to head, Patrick Mahomes has had 477 total offensive yards, 25 first downs, 6 touchdowns, and 3 turnovers. Jalen Hurts has had 654 total offensive yards, 37 first downs, 7 touchdowns, and 2 turnovers, and that's from Himbo from ESPN. So again, Jalen, and there's a conversation that I want to have with you guys while we finish this out. Jalen, when he's head to head against Patrick Mahomes, he does not falter. He literally is up for the competition. He has had 2 turnovers. Last time, obviously they lost, and that was the big caveat to them losing is him fumbling the ball. This time, his turnover didn't mean anything in this situation. But statistically, they're not far off from each other at all. Jalen has more offensive total yards that we've seen and more touchdowns and first downs and less turnovers than Patrick. You take that as you may. But for me, watching what they sold out for that, they dared Jalen. Jalen won, beat him with that as if Jalen can't pass. I'm now here to say this, as I've been saying this for a while, for all those that have been calling Jalen a running back, that said that Jalen is a game manager, that says that Jalen can't do it in the moments or whatnot. He's a Super Bowl MVP, and he is MVP. RG3 went on the internet, and on the X to be exact, and went ahead to say that this win puts Jalen in a different category above Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. No, don't make that face. Because if people actually read what he was saying, he's saying he puts him in a different category because he's a Super Bowl winner and an MVP. He didn't say that he was better than any of those quarterbacks that I mentioned. He is now in a different tier because those 3 quarterbacks have not won. So you're making this face, Harrison. Is that not true?
It's not that black and white, man. Like,
how is it not?
Like, you have these Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts comparisons. Like, the game plan for the Chiefs is to stop Saquon in the running game. And it wasn't the first Super Bowl to not Saquon, but stop the running game. And on the other side, the game plan for the Eagles is to stop Patrick Mahomes. It's just 2 completely different game plans. I would love to see Jalen get focused on, but that's not the Eagles. That's not how they play. They're not. Like, Jalen is a product of the environment that he's in. Not saying he's bad at it. He's great at it. He's definitely taking advantage of all of his opportunities that he has. But his opportunities are different because of the way teams are game planning against it.
Okay. How does that answer what I just said? Jalen Hurts is now in a different category from Lamar, Josh, and Joe, because now he is a Super Bowl champion and a Super Bowl MVP. Again, saying that he doesn't mean he's better than those 3, but he is now in a different category.
You can make the argument he was before because he actually got to the
Super Bowl.
That one, like, he didn't win. Yes. He played really well until the team didn't.
So is he like in the category with like Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco? Like, I
mean, they're Super Bowl champions. Not many people can say that they've done that. I mean, Dan Marino is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's never talked in that Super Bowl conversation because he never won one, right? So it's a different. It's I understood what RG3 was saying clear as day, is that this, when you win a Super Bowl, is the top of the mountain, is what you played the game for to do it, and it puts you in a different stratosphere. Doesn't mean Trent Dilfer is the world beater and is the best quarterback ever. Like, absolutely not, right? But he is a guy that has won the Super Bowl. Yes, you can argue that Trent Dilfer had one of the greatest defenses ever, right? But he still had to throw the ball, right? He still had to do something with it and get there. He's not just a pushover. Yes, not the greatest quarterback, but he's still there. It puts you in a different bracket.
I agree with that. I mean, there's not much you could say to that.
I agree.
Like I said, it's like not that black and white. Like,
no, I don't think this conversation can ever be black and white with any quarterback argument. It's because I would say the goalpost has moved on so many different things. It's okay. Well, this guy has more touchdowns. Well, this guy has more rings, so this means he's better this way. Or this guy had this. Like, it's always something different. To your point, it can't be black and white. There's always some caveat that changes the conversation, and everybody's perspective is different. I'm just very happy for myself in a situation that I can sit here and just laugh at people that said, like Todd McShay, Sam's friend, that said that Jalen could not be the lead of a franchise. That Colin Cowherd has said that Jalen Hurts was the 8th best quarterback in the playoffs this year, and he seemed to be the one to win that. It's things like that I've had to listen to. Cam Newton, who is one of my favorite players to ever play. I named my former dog his damn name, to say that if Jalen was in the AFC,
Scam.
That if Jalen was in the AFC, that Jalen and the Eagles would not win. Yet Jalen has beat every quarterback that they've said has been better than him in the AFC, and they just did what they had to do. So I just find it very interesting, these narratives. So now my thing is, what are they going to do now? What's the narrative on Jalen Hurts now? What are they going to say now?
I think they'll be quiet for a while.
I think so.
Yeah, too. I think this is obviously, I know this bugs you, and we have this conversation about Lamar a lot. And I think when that gets, it's just chalked up to you spend too much time on Twitter with these trolls.
Oh, I love
just laughing at these trolls.
Yeah,
I know you do. And
I love it.
It's not a slight against you. It's just saying, Lamar needs to make he needs to just get to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
But like I've read off this list like all season long. I can't find it on my desktop right now, but like all of the quarterbacks that have made the Super Bowl in the last 10 years, there's only been a handful of Super Bowl winners.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts is one of them.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just you're a product of the team. Like, yeah, the Dodgers have the best team in baseball. And they have like a superstar at every position. They still gotta play.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, and Jalen has gotten progressively better, clearly, than last season. 2 years ago, he was in the MVP conversation. I don't remember where he finished, but he was right there. So like it's not that the talent isn't there, and the defense showed up there. He's a product of his environment, but we've seen like Patrick Mahomes has been a product of his environment.
Absolutely.
And there's been years where he needs a lot more help and he's not getting it, and that was yesterday.
Well said.
So I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I've always been a Jalen Hurts fan, so this conversation, I side with you because I don't really care what anyone else says.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I just look at it as like wins over replacement, and there's not many I would take over Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's not top of the top, but there's not many.
Not
many I'm taking over him. That's for sure.
It's hard to be top of the top. I mean, to the point that Sam just highlighted. I mean, we watched in the Super Bowl, as at least for us growing up watching, we've known Tom Brady to win a lot of these Super Bowls, right? There was a couple of people in between. You had Eli Manning's in between twice. You had Nick Foles, right? Those are like the only people that essentially win during Tom Brady's time,
Peyton.
Right? What happened? Yeah, Peyton as well, correct, right?
Peyton,
right? And Drew as well, right? So your boy,
Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. So and just think about that. Those are some Hall of Famers that you just mentioned, right? But for the majority of the time, it was Tom. And now we move off from those guys that retired, and then it was Patrick, right? Outside of obviously losing to Tom again, and then now losing against Jalen, right? So it's as you said, we've seen several quarterbacks win, right? But we've also Jalen was the only quarterback since '94 to ever lose his first Super Bowl and make it back, right? Yeah, and he made it back against the team that he lost against, and they got their get back, right? So it's very interesting to see this. And the Eagles have been in the Super Bowl 3 times in the past 7 years. So that says a lot about the franchise. It also says a lot about Howie Roseman, who literally was sidelined for Chip Kelly and sat there and waited in the dark hole in the Eagles corner and just waited for his time and Jeffrey Lurie be like, yeah, I was wrong on Chip, come back, do what you got to do. And it's been smooth sailing ever since. And just hitting on those picks, right? There's definitely some things that Justin Jefferson should have been an Eagle, but that's what I was in. Yeah, I know. Listen, we're not talking about that today, Sam.
JJ, aside from that,
they made up for it. It's okay.
Tenfold. Well, tenfold, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Here's the I didn't share this with you. you probably know this and seen it. The picks that were acquired in the Carson Wentz trade, and that was him going to Indy, right?
Yep.
Part of these picks were used, and obviously Howie trades a lot, but Devonta Smith,
Yep.
AJ Brown,
Jalen Carter,
and Cooper DeJean.
Yep.
I mean, it's
masterful.
That's why I wore earlier in the day my Carson Wentz jersey. And I can honestly tell you this. I almost wore it today. I almost wore it today for the podcast. And I genuinely didn't wear the Carson Wentz jersey for a little bit because I was so pissed off. But I thank Carson Wentz for so much. Yeah. I thank him for so much. This is 2 Super Bowls now that he got to watch the Eagles win on the bench. So I thank him for that because it's 2. But also his moves that he did for the Eagles trading him. All jokes aside, without Carson Wentz, this franchise is not set up the way it is. They don't win their first Super Bowl in 2018. It was off the back of him. Like, he had a phenomenal season, would have been the MVP, tore his ACL against the Rams, whatnot. That was set up because of him. Nick Foles came in and had an unbelievable run in the playoffs, but if it wasn't for Carson, it wouldn't got there. And then, as you mentioned, the trades. If those don't happen, if Howie's not smart and his value's not where it was at that point in time, you don't get those players that you just mentioned because you had 4 number 1 picks out of that you got, that you were able to move and maneuver and do certain things. And it's all jokes aside, for Eagles fans, you should be thanking Carson Wentz, like, not even being funny, because if it wasn't for him coming to the franchise and us being bad prior to, these players don't come here, right?
And here's the flip of the conversation too. That was that draft, the Jalen Hurts draft, where he was taken in the second round. That's where Jordan Love was taken by the Packers, and we killed the Packers.
Joe Burrow was in that too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
But Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, look at the second round wide receivers, that are late first round receivers in that draft. Mm-hmm. And you drafted Jalen Reagor, but at your second pick, you took Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And where would the team be if Carson Wentz the wheels came off like they did and there wasn't a contingency plan?
I was so pissed when they got Jalen at the time, because I was just like, okay, I love Jalen. I know what Jalen has done. He's won every single step or every single place that he's landed in football. And
been classy along the way.
And he's absolutely been classy along the way, right? But at that point in time, Carson Wentz is now considered the franchise quarterback. Why are you drafting a quarterback so high when we need assets to put around Carson to do that, right? And now looking back, it's just like, I'm so glad that happened, right? It's because Carson wasn't, after the injury, he wasn't necessarily the internal stuff that was happening in the locker room wasn't great. I mean, you have Darren Sproles talking about how selfish he was and so on and so forth, and some other players, right? So it kind of everything happens for a reason. I know it's so cliche to say that shit, but it really does happen for a reason, because here you go, you get Jalen. I want to go through some stats with you guys and share some notes and some things that I've come across during this. So as we mentioned, Jalen is the Super Bowl MVP. He had 221 passing yards. He was 17 for 22, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. He rushed for 72 yards and 1 TD. Devonta Smith, if you guys can believe this or not, was the first Alabama graduate to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So obviously Jalen went to Alabama and transferred to Oklahoma, but he did not graduate with Alabama. There is any player that came out of Alabama, and think of all the players that have come out of there that graduated, he's the only one to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Go ahead, Harrison.
Didn't he come out as a junior? Did he finish school?
Who?
Devonta Smith. Did he finish school?
I believe he did.
Didn't he come out as a junior?
Well, he came out early.
Okay. I think he might have finished. Whatever.
But also I added this note to Xavier Worthy. He's the first Texas Longhorn with a TD in the Super Bowl as well.
Wild.
So you have Alabama and Texas.
Texas, yes, and all the names that come out of there, and they're the first to do that.
That's crazy.
That's insane. Was arguably Bama before that.
Yes,
as far as
absolutely.
Prestige and high value position players.
Yes.
Crazy.
Nuts to know that. That was shared with me first with a friend of the show, Farkas. He shared it with me earlier in the day, and he said on Bleacher Report they reported that no player from Alabama has come out and scored a touchdown. I said that's not true, because I went and looked at Jalen, because Jalen scored in that, but Jalen obviously came out of school from Oklahoma, not Bama. So wild. Patrick Mahomes, even though they lost and definitely was his worst game that I think we've ever seen him play, he still threw for 257 passing yards. Whether that is in garbage time or not, he still threw that. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and then 6 sacks. But he rushed for 25 yards. Xavier Worthy, as Harrison mentioned, first Texas Longhorn with a TD in the Super Bowl. Wild. He had 157 yards, 2 TDs. I still remember us going back to that conversation in the beginning of the year when they drafted him. He molded into what he was supposed to be when Hollywood Brown came back. He was supposed to be the gadget guy, and that's what they made him. But he's a little bit more than that, and I think he's starting to get his feet in the NFL. So shout out to that young man for sure. As we also mentioned, the Eagles defense did not blitz once. 25 pressures, 11 QB hits, 6 sacks, and 3 takeaways. Also, other notes here. Jalen Hurts is the highest graded QB in the Super Bowl among quarterbacks to make 2 or more Super Bowls. He also is the only quarterback in NFL history to do the following in a single game: throw for 200-plus yards, rush for 70-plus yards, throw for multiple touchdowns, rush for a touchdown, complete 75% of his passes, average 10-plus yards per pass attempt, and win the game. Wild. Wild, okay? I already mentioned the head-to-head on that one. It's just very, how can I say it to me? It's very interesting just to watch all of these things happen here. Also, Nick Sirianni he's an elite company with, I'll give the 2 names of who he's in company with and tell you what he is: Vince Lombardi and John Madden. He's one of the only, he's one of those 3 coaches to have a 700 career win percentage in a Super Bowl championship. So he's up there. And I just remember when even me being on here saying ready for him to go. And this guy has continued to win and just woos. The team loves him. You can see his 2 favorite players that absolutely love him, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, which is the 2 guys that poured the Gatorade on him. He has a super big connection with those guys and absolutely loves them. He also was a former receiver in college. Very, very interesting to see all of this kind of lay out from here. But I've said enough on that. I mean, I really haven't said enough. I really could go more and more and more. But your thoughts that you guys want to add to this. Also, real quick, Jalen Hurts was the first player in NFL history to pass 10 touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns in the playoffs. So he's the first player to ever do that too. So a lot of firsts for a guy that they just consider to be a running back and not a guy they can build a franchise around. All in all, with the results of the game, what do you, how can I say this? How do you think that the Chiefs can improve from this? And then what do you think is the next step for the Eagles moving forward?
Well, I think as far as just, you fix the deficiencies, offensive line, everyone's a year older, everyone's making more money than the previous year. That's going to be the problem with the Eagles. Like, how long can you keep this core together? It seems like there's a nice window there. And there's always, as we've talked about, there's always the benches filled with, guys ready to when their number's called. But yeah, I mean, you got to see the Kelsey, is he going to retire? What does that look like? The offensive line. Do you need, Clyde Edwards-Helaire didn't work out. Isaiah Pacheco is a great player, especially for a 7th round pick. But where else do we go from there? They got lucky that Kareem Hunt, was rejuvenated in a way and was able to carry that load while Pacheco was gone. What do you do there? And then the defensive side of the ball, just continuing to improve there. It's going to be, there's a lot of decisions, I'm sure, cap wise that need to be made, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard to win in this league, man.
Sure is.
Yeah, it's a simple one. It's got to be offensive line. I mean, that clearly dictated everything. You said it, Sam. I mean, they have great pieces. That's how they got here. They got here even in a down year. But, the glaring weakness showed against, a proper defensive line that didn't have to blitz once. That just can't It just can't happen. Like, you can't win a game that way. You have to force the defense to send extra people. So, yeah, it's got to be offensive line. They got to kind of draft some playmakers right away on that line, see what they can do in free agency, and then just health. It's just luck of the draw, and that's how this league is.
I won't say offensive line because you gentlemen both said that, but I will say receiver, is because since Tyreek Hill left, obviously Travis Kelce was the one to step up and do that and take the place of that. That's always been Patrick Mahomes' number one. But with a guy that could take the top off the defense and allow that the another receiver to work under, I think that's a big deal. We were talking about this on here last week when we were trying to figure out like who would be the key factor, right? And we're naming Joe Schmo from your local high school being the guy to catch the ball, right? I think it's time for them to really invest in that. And yes, they did their thing with drafting Worthy or whatnot, but there's a guy. I mean, he's Aaron Rodgers' guy. We don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to be. He's pretty much, I'm pretty sure, a free agent at this point, right? He's a year left in his contract.
Davante Adams needs to restructure his deal if he's going to stay. So there's a lot of rumblings now that, especially because Aaron Rodgers was pretty much shown the door. It's been reported. I
love the fact that they had him fly out to New York to tell him that he wasn't the guy. I think that's absolutely hilarious.
I'm just interested, who decided to leak that information on Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah. It's clear. It's probably Woody. Woody was probably like, I hate you so much that I want everybody to know in Super Bowl that we had you fly out here to tell you that you no longer have a job and you could fly back to wherever the hell you got to go to and drink your ayahuasca in whatever cave in South America. I think it's receiver for the Chiefs, and then
Rashee Rice too, man. He was hurt.
Yes,
Hollywood Brown. Rashee was. I mean, I was banging the drum for him all year. He was having a great year.
Well, Rasheed's also got to wear, and he's got to mature on top of that too.
Well, yeah, and
that's another thing as well.
When it comes back.
There's that. So receiver for sure, and then I believe that they need another defensive player. They need another cornerback opposite of McDuffie, excuse me, and then they also need another defensive end. And I know there's a guy that's, from the Cleveland Browns that everybody's trying to get, arguably the best defensive end in football, Myles Garrett, that doesn't want to be there. I know teams want him. So I'm sure they'll be calling all off season. So that's just the two places that I think. For the Eagles, there's a lot of contracts that they need to worry about. Number one, Zach Bond. Played out of his mind. A guy that was a special teamers last year and could have won a defensive player of the year, was in the conversation, probably wasn't going to win over Patrick Surtain Jr., who did win it. But Zach Bond, signed him. Josh Sweat, who was, in my opinion, I love Jalen. I know what Jalen did, but if we're going to be real, we know a defensive player doesn't really necessarily get the MVP. Josh Sweat 100% was the MVP last night in that game. For the pressures and the sacks that he had, he was playing out of his absolute mind, and could have easily won that as well too. So Josh Sweat out there. We got a couple other players on the line that they're going to have to potentially re-sign, and it's going to be a lot gone. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of changeover, and then also what do the Eagles do after? In Super Bowl teams, they don't have that much rest compared to other teams, and they're damn near right back to it very, very soon. So what is it going to look like the year after? They're going to have a Super Bowl hangover. What is it going to be like for this team? Do teams now adjust and build teams to try to stop Saquon, and what do they do from there? Like, what does this look like going forward?
Kellen Moore too.
Kellen Moore is gone. Yep, going to be the new offensive coordinator. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Thank God Vic Fangio's not leaving because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be a head coach again. And he's a Philly native, so he's fine where he's at. Shout out to the Dolphins players for saying that Vic Fangio was terrible for the players and wasn't their guy. It's funny how he turned around a defense that was the worst in the league and made them the best. Also, shout out to Joe Shane and John Mara. We should, as Eagles fans, if you're listening, we should send them a gift basket for giving us Saquon leaves the Giants and in the same time goes and just wins the Super Bowl.
It's I know we talk about it every week, man,
wild.
but is there more? Is there more of a Man,
Mm-mm-mm.
karma's not the word. I don't know what it is. I
It's
mean,
something.
maybe it's karma because it seemed like they dragged Saquon along for 2 years trying to sign him. But man, the egg on your face. Now your rivals down 95 here are like, have your best player, and he has reached the top, and he broke records doing it. And man, that's not a good feeling.
I wanted to share these two things with you guys before we go, because I feel that we definitely should talk about the halftime show, and Harrison should lead off because I want to hear what he thought of the halftime show. But only 2 quarterbacks in NFL history have completed 70% of their passes and scored 3 touchdowns in multiple Super Bowl games. Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts. Devonta Smith has now scored a touchdown in the following games: the Super Bowl, National Championship, SEC Championship, Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl, Iron Bowl. He also has these trophies at the age of 26. Super Bowl, 2 college football national championships, college football national championship offensive MVP, Heisman Trophy, Maxwell Award, Walter Camp, Bolishnikov Award, Paul Hornung is that award, AP College Football Player of the Year, Sporting News College Football Player of the Year, SEC Male Athlete of the Year, SEC Offensive Player of the Year. Shout out to the Giants for that too. Actually, no, shout out to the Cowboys for that one. Cowboys, Thank you for that one. You allowed us to jump ahead of the Giants because they were going to draft them. So shout out to the Cowboys for that one. We mentioned the Cowboys on a podcast that they have nothing to do with anything.
Devonta Smith making $13 million less than AJ Brown next year.
Yeah. And he just signed the deal. What was it, last year? He just signed the deal, or the beginning, over the offseason. And he was like, I didn't want all the money. He's like, I just wanted security. And so, yeah. These are the things that come with champions after they win once. I think Isaiah Thomas wrote about it, about the Detroit Pistons. It's like the disease of more. Like, how do you keep everyone satisfied?
Happy?
Yep.
I mean, they've reached their career goal. Like, this is the pinnacle. Like, you win a Super Bowl.
The Chiefs defense will run it back a lot better with L'Jarius Sneed on the other side.
They sure would.
It didn't happen. They was a tackle that they lost to the Bengals. Like Brown. Was it Brown? Orlando Brown? Was it Orlando?
I think so. Yeah.
So like
he went to the Bengals.
Yeah, just along another team that has an awful offensive line. So yeah, it's just it comes to. I know we talk this quarterback conversation all the time, and like, Dak fell off. All these things. CBS Sports. I think there were 90 quarterbacks drafted since Patrick Mahomes. Only one of them has won a Super Bowl as a starter, and that's Jalen Hurts. So like, that's how hard it is to get here. Yeah. There's like this graphic here. It's 90 quarterbacks.
That's wild.
All with X's over them. So like, man, it's just, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to keep this team together, and people are going to get louder and want more money and feel like, and that's just, it's managing egos and doing all of that. But again, they're, for right now, just enjoy it and know that you're set up for the.
Don't you worry.
You're set up for a nice return for a few years here, and you guys played insane.
Sam, there's a lyric I want to share with you. Big as the what? Big as the what? Big as the Super Bowl. Somebody performed at the Super Bowl. He squabbled up or something like that. There was PlayStation logos and keys on the ground. Serena Crip walking. Samuel L. Jackson is Uncle Sam. I think there was this guy, Kendrick Lamar, performed a halftime show. Let me say this. Fox, do something with your damn audio, because that was so low to hear. And I had my speakers on the highest volume possible, and it was so low.
I didn't have it.
No, it was low.
On the 4K channel, which I didn't even know was a thing until recently.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I was vibing the whole time. I watched it this morning on YouTube.
I watched it again on
Did
Apple,
they fix it?
and it was on Apple. It was perfectly fine. But yeah, last night it was not necessarily that. But I was told by Adam that it was loud as hell in there.
Is that your conspiracy? They turned him down.
They might have tried to.
Might have.
But I know there's a lot of talk about Kendrick's performance and people saying, well, you know, it's first off, Kendrick was not for everybody. Number one wasn't even for everybody that's in this generation, and that's okay. I've been hearing a lot of boomers like, I didn't even understand him. What was he saying? I was like, this is funny to me. I'm enjoying this. I enjoyed the performance. I don't think it was the greatest performance, and I've seen Kendrick perform live 6 times. I don't think this is anywhere near his greatest performance that I've seen, but the symbolism behind his performance is everything for me. That's the part that was. I also thought it was very clever how he did Not Like Us, which the whole Sue and talking about it, and he's like, I want to do the song, but this, and then leading up and the build up to it was crazy. And again, to hear a whole arena yell
storytelling,
A minor, wild.
It's just storytelling at its finest, and from Section 80, like from that album, like, and Good Kid, Mad City, like it's always been a ride, and it's always been a story. And I pissed off there wasn't more songs from those, by the way. And I think you could be, if you're a diehard Kendrick fan or a hip hop fan, you understand what it's done for the culture and what this moment was, especially with the Drake stuff, the Super Bowl, coming off of 5 Grammys on a diss song that he didn't even put on his album purposely, which is, I think, is like the greatest flex of all. I don't need these numbers. This song went like platinum a zillion times. I don't need it. Like, it's not part of what I'm trying to do with this record. And I think I loved it. I love Kendrick. So I'm just a stan in that regard. But I think visually and just understanding what this album was and like what he's about and the storytelling, like, I think visually it was as impressive as anything. So yeah, it wasn't going to be for everyone. I mean, if there was a country artist on, I wouldn't care. If it was like some like hair metal band from the 80s or something, I wouldn't.
Well, that's why it's going to be Post Malone next year. But
that's what I mean. There's never going to be something for everybody.
Never. Yeah,
but like this was so far off the spectrum, but it was such a big moment for hip hop and just everything that's gone on. And I think I just thought it was great. Yeah, some more hits, some more like
definitely. There's no money trees. There's no certain things like that. Yeah, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. That happened.
Like by the way, guys could have came out.
I feel like he performed. How many? I think he performed 2 Good Kid, Mad City songs when he performed with Dr. Dre, though.
Yes.
So I could see.
Yes.
I could see why not.
Why not do it again? Yeah.
I would have liked them too. I mean, that's my favorite Kendrick album by far, easily. Yeah. But no, I thought it was awesome. I mean, I had to watch it again this morning.
Yes.
We had people over, and it was low, but you couldn't tell all the things he had going on. Correct. But just watching it back, and the stage was incredible. And the way, he moved around the stage, and it was just cool. It was really good. I as a Drake fan, I'm not mad at it. It was awesome.
Also, for people that are saying and asking about the A does not stand for A minor. That was on his neck. I know a lot of.
What was it for?
It's the logo for PG Lang. It's not. It's his brand. It's not A minor. I know it's comical to think that people are like, oh, that A was for A minor. Like the fact that you think he went and iced out a chain, which Kendrick is that psycho that he would do some shit like that. But no, that's not what it was for. It was for PG Lang. If you actually look on his site, because there's flags that were on the field that were waved, and it was 2 kids pointing up to the A, and people were like, like he's doing it for pedophile. Like, no, that's literally his logo for the brand. So it's not that people.
It just ramped up too. Like, I thought he started slow, but then going from SZA to Not Like Us and then to the Mustard song is just that. That's just
it was a part of the story being told. It was Samuel L. Jackson, and the whole thing. The whole premise, for those that aren't aware, was how Black Americans are being told what to do in a certain way, and you're being confined. Being in that box when they were in the X, that was symbolism for jail. Like, that's, I don't think people realize certain things like that, but that's what it was about. When he was doing the song with SZA, Samuel L. Jackson's like, do songs like that. Don't speak up, and then like he was pushed back and squabble up in his whole situation, which, to be fair, as you said, with people around, I couldn't really hear that part. And then watching it again, it was like, oh, this all makes sense. And this is right on brand for Kendrick Lamar. So it makes sense. And it's understandable why I went over so many people's heads of what it was.
It would have never hit there.
No, it wouldn't have. No, not at all. Not at all.
The circle thing, like the rotating camera.
Yeah, awesome.
Like,
so good.
I know it was like reminiscent of like The Weeknd, and there were a lot of conversations that was great too. But like, it just like visually, I think, you know, he knew that. I think the league knew that this wasn't going to appeal for everyone, but from a culture moment, from a topical moment, you know, there's only a handful of artists that I think could have like warranted that just based on the last year. And yeah, I just think for what it was, he crushed it, and I just thought it was great.
It's not a lot of artists that warrant it. It's hard. It's hard to pick a next one.
True.
And he performed well. Uncle Sam, great touch.
That was phenomenal. Like it was like he always puts his touch on something. And it's just like I wouldn't have thought about that shit. Like when I kept hearing that there was a big guest, I'm thinking like, oh, Lil Wayne, they might have reconciled or whatever and just have him out. But I was like, there's no way that's going to happen because Wayne is Drake and all this stuff. And I was like, that can't happen. And then the surprise, Serena, and then Samuel L. Jackson just opened it up. I was like, who the hell would have picked Samuel L. Jackson to be the one that came out? Also, Kendrick screwed a lot of people with his opening song because that's an unreleased song that he started off with, and everybody was trying to guess what song it was. And it was, I'm sure there's nobody that got that song. Period.
Mm-hmm. That's the one he teased before
he dropped GNX.
Yep, it's not an album. Yeah, I was hoping there was like an album last night.
I'm telling you right now, it's coming. I still feel it's coming. I still feel.
But I didn't realize this until this morning, and then I saw it on the internet. But like the opening line of Family Matters, where it's like Kendrick just opened his mouth, someone give him a Grammy right now. Yeah. Then he wins 5, and then the next line is what? Like Drake's like, "Is your uncle home? Let me speak to the man of the house," or whatever. And like and then the Uncle Sam thing, I was like, oh, like it's just nothing is an accident with Kendrick Lamar. There could be stretches, sure, but like this dude. This guy has taught me that I've never really hated anyone or anything enough. Because like the vindictiveness and pettiness that exists in this human being it's on all time maniacal.
He just needs an outlet to like express his genius. He does. Like he's just a genius. He's a musical genius. I mean, he's not my sound, like the West Coast stuff I don't love, but I definitely respect he's just a genius, man. And we used to say it about Kanye, and musically Kanye still is maybe, and he's just going off on rants all day, but Kendrick just seems, you know, more grounded and more kind of in society, and hopefully he doesn't go any Kanye route, but the dude is an absolute musical genius, and it was cool to watch.
I miss the old Kanye, straight from the old Kanye.
Don't get me 5 albums. Was there a better first 5 albums than Kanye's? Run?
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Way off topic. I don't care.
I genuinely cannot wait for the documentaries, the documentary of the rise and fall of Kanye West, that he self-sabotaged himself. Like it wasn't anybody else. It was him. And to have one of the greatest hip hop careers and just to essentially throw it in the toilet. Okay, this is not the podcast for that. Let's get to NBA trades that happened. There was a lot that happened. On the last episode, we went through a few of them. We left it off with where the hell Jimmy Butler was going to go. We now know where he went, among some other trades that went through and some that were rescinded. And by some, I mean one, and it's very interesting. So, Wizards acquired Marcus Smart from the Grizzlies. Wizards received Marcus Smart, Kobe Jones, and Alex Len in a 2025 first-round pick. The Grizzlies get 2 second-round picks, Marvin Bagley III, haven't heard that name in a while, and Johnny Davis. Kings receive Jack LaRavia, whatever the hell, Labia. Jack Labia.
He's actually very good.
You say he's actually good?
Yeah, he's actually very good.
Okay,
that's the steal.
See, this is why Harrison here to talk about this. The Raptors land Ingram in a 3-player trade. I didn't see this until reading this. So Brandon Ingram goes to the Raptors. Like I didn't know that happened. Yeah. Just kind of just under the radar type thing. Pelicans receive Bruce Brown. My man Bruce Brown is just everywhere. Bruce Brown just gets traded like every season.
He's got a good contract. Those contracts like within like the 10 to 12 million, those guys get traded all the time. That's why Dennis Schroeder just keeps getting traded because it's like
he's been traded like 3 times already this year. Been on 3 different teams. Yeah,
it's just a good contract. Like it's easy. Okay. It's palatable.
Fair.
3 times, right?
Yeah. Pelicans receive Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, first round pick, second round pick. Jimmy Butler is acquired by the Warriors from the Heat. Jimmy Butler, the Warriors get Jimmy Butler, 2 second-round picks and cash consideration. The Heat get Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, and Davion Mitchell.
There's like 20 things in this.
Yeah, this is crazy. It keeps going. 2025 first round
might not be finalized yet. They might still be throwing shit in.
They might still be. Jazz receive Josh Richardson, KJ Martin, a bunch of picks. Pistons receive Lindy Waters the third, Dennis Schroeder, as we talked about, another pick. Raptors receive PJ Tucker, another person that gets moved around a lot, and some more picks. There's just a lot of things that just went around.
Have to move that shoe collection around as many times as PJ Tucker's got to move that shoe collection around.
He probably has a stationary home, and it just stays there. I would pray for his sake because
I think it just stays in Houston.
Yeah, it should. It should.
Jimmy Butler looked great.
He did.
He
did.
So
him and Steph. That moment that they had together, I was like, okay, I like it. Yeah. Cavs trade for DeAndre Hunter. That's a solid move. I know that.
I really like
it. Hawks receive Karis LeVert, my guy. George Niang, more picks from there. And then the rescinded trade, Lakers had acquired Williams from the Hornets, Mark Williams, and the Hornets had got Dalton Connect and Cam Reddish along with picks. So that all went back the way it was, right? Everything went back there. Okay, cool.
Hornets tried to give the Lakers a lemon.
You
know it's bad when the Lakers, who desperately need a big man,
was like, nope.
You're like, nah, I can't take this.
Nope. Sorry. So what did he not pass the physical?
No.
No. Yeah. Love that. Great times.
All of these players should have been in the Luka trade, by the way. All of this. And this was kind of what I was saying last week. It's like, this 2031 pick, even though if Luka's playing, it's useless. And Connect is, could be, he was a first round pick, could be solid. I think Cam Reddish is what he is.
The GM statement from the Hornets after they get Williams back is hilarious.
Oh, that was funny. Check that out. Like what the Hornets GM said after the trade got rescinded. It was
after
so
the
funny.
Lakers aggressively
welcomed him back. Yeah, we didn't want to get rid of you, dog. Like here's another shocking thing too. I mean, well, what are the Lakers going to do? And then the other thing is the Bucks actually traded Chris Middleton. Like I never thought.
Finally.
Has there been a player that has stayed put that has been rumored to be traded for as long as Chris Middleton?
My man is he's in the same list as Anthony Davis. Obviously, Anthony Davis is a way better player, but this man can never stay healthy. Period.
He's had a rough last.
Period. It hasn't been good, and I mean this man was a all-star at one point and looked like he was going to ascend to a stratosphere that we didn't think he was going to get to, and then injury after injury after injury. But for that trade, Kyle Kuzma, you might not have heard about him for a while because he's been wasting away or doing whatever he's been doing with the Wizards.
I don't think he's been wasting.
That's why it's like or whatever he's been doing.
He's been god awful.
He's not been great. The Lakers were smart for getting rid of him. Remember the Lakers wouldn't move off him for so long.
Like it was like the Kuzma versus Tatum.
Yes,
Kuzma versus Tatum.
The only chip they had. It was the only asset they had after.
It was Ingram and it was him, and they did not want to move off of either of those guys, and then they eventually moved both of them, and it was just like, okay, I would. I mean, out of the two, I would have kept Ingram, but Ingram's never healthy either, so there's that too. It's kind of just a wash.
Think of what the Lakers gave up to get Anthony Davis. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was Ingram, Lonzo, Josh Hart, all of those picks and all those swaps, like. Yeah,
and then they get Luka Doncic
for a washing machine. Great times. No, I'm playing. Harrison, how do you feel about this trade? The Hawks trade Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Yeah, what a
to the
What a
Clippers.
great guy.
For
In 2K, I always make sure he's on my bench if I can get him, because it's a good
solid.
salary and he's a really good shooter. Yeah.
For Terrence Mann and yep. Thoughts?
He's solid. I mean, the Clippers are quietly in the mix. They're like 5th or 6th right now, so they're always just hanging around. And it'll always just come down to, do you have a healthy Kawhi?
Well,
and
it's not going to.
That is probably no. You do not have a healthy Kawhi.
Well, they also got somebody that's also very unhealthy in Ben Simmons, and so they're not going to win anything because they got Ben Simmons. So there's that.
Ben Simmons signed with the Clippers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my yes. Yes, you did.
They bought him out.
The Nets bought him out, and then the Clippers signed him. Yeah.
Oh, I missed that completely.
Yep. I got you. Don't worry. I rejoiced when I saw that. I said this week is getting better for me. At that point in time, I said I knew the Eagles were going to win because
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. I still have some Ben Simmons stock, to be honest. I'm ashamed
terrible
about it, but I do.
That's terrible.
Yeah. That first year he had defensively and facilitating was just
that time has passed.
It's hard for me to get rid of.
If he could do 70% of that, he'd be solid. Yeah, no, I know he can't. That's why I said it. If he could just do 70% of that, we'd be talking about him like Bruce Brown, just bopping around from team to team, and would be signing 1-2 year deals, getting traded to contenders like that. Like there was a time where I thought Ben Simmons could turn this around, but he can't shoot. And he just can't shoot.
Well, it's not even the fact that he can't shoot. He just won't shoot. He just won't shoot at all.
He can't stay healthy. Like, yeah, it's
I thought he'd go to the Lakers, but Clippers. Okay.
I mean, my man, just think. His downfall needs to be studied. This man was considered to be an MVP at one point in time, and then it just all went to shambles. And it's crazy because, to Harrison's point, defensively, he was a juggernaut. He can literally match up against anybody on the court at any time. He could switch at any time, do what he wants. And his way that his dribble penetration for him was phenomenal. Like his vision is very, very good. But the problem is after a while, it's just like any major sport. Is after a while, we have enough tape on you. We know what you do. We're just going to play off of you and watch what you do.
Playoff game just broke him. Like
where when they passed him under the rim and he didn't shoot
under
it.
The rim. Yeah.
He just has no. I mean, this has been kind of, when I was in New Orleans, he was at LSU, and just the word out on him is just he has no work ethic, like none at all. Like he's had everything kind of given to him every step of the way, and his work ethic is just really, really, really poor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the rumor, and I tend to believe it, seeing how his career is shaked out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's no reason. There's nothing to tell you otherwise because you see the flashes of potential, and that again, I don't know the last time we saw any of those flashes. Certainly wasn't in a Brooklyn uniform, so I have no idea. But it's just it's a shame, but here we are.
Now he's in LA.
Yeah.
Can we talk about real quick as we wrap up the NBA stuff? Just what the Mavericks governor basically said about Luka as they showed him the door. Mm-hmm. I don't have the quote in front of me. I probably should have queued it up if I wanted to talk about it. But like, you could talk about him being lazy and like not comparing him to the greats because his work ethic is bad. But so that was the like behind the curtain why you got to get rid of him, and that's what I was talking about last week. But it doesn't mean you get rid of him for like the washing machine. And like, no disrespect to Anthony Davis, and we have bashed him enough, and he stayed healthy all last year, which was great. He's not healthy now. Like he played one game and he's hurt. He's back on the bench.
Yeah.
So like,
I have it. I can read it.
That's all. That's what you got. Like, okay, he could be lazy, but there's 31 other teams 30 other teams salivating for Luka Doncic and would give you everything for him. So like, yeah, he could be lazy, but you're just as lazy for being in a silo and just trading with your friend, like at this point.
What was the quote, Harrison?
If you look at the greats in the league, the people you and I grew up with, Jordan, Bird, Kobe, Shaq, they worked really hard every day with a singular focus to win. And if you don't have that, it doesn't work. You shouldn't be a part of the Dallas Mavericks.
I love that. Let's just talk solely about the Shaq part of this. because Kobe has notoriously called Shaq out to his face for the lack of work that he put in, and said that he could have won multiple MVPs and they could have won more championships if Shaq actually put in the work ethic. Like Kobe had it, Shaq didn't.
I agree. Respectfully to Kobe. Kobe's a psycho.
Well,
and I say that with nothing but admiration for him. But like that, the work ethic that is sickening. Yes, I agree. But like, let's put a caveat to it a little bit. Like, what is the barometer? The hardest lesson I've ever had to learn as a professional is that someone's 100%. It may seem like they're not. Mm-hmm. You know, my work ethic in compared to other people, like it's not all the same.
Yeah,
right?
Not comparable.
And that was the hardest thing I've had to learn as a manager, as a
100%
a professional, right? But like Kobe, like comparing Kobe's work ethic to anything is crazy. But yes,
that's my beef with it. It's like you're comparing him to all-time
great
rings. Like, you're comparing Luka to this. But it's like, and I had questions about Luka before he made the finals last year too. But he did it. Like he made the finals with a real chance to win. And
he dragged that team to the finals.
And then you're trading that, standing on these principles for less of that. Like Anthony Davis is more of that than Luka. Like Anthony Davis has a title, but it's just apples to oranges. Like, I don't know. It's just so weird. It's so weird.
I don't know. You couldn't ask for pick swaps and Dalton Connect.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't ask for Austin Reeves.
Yeah. It's just like saving face at this point.
Yeah. It's.
Oh, well. The conspiracy theory is they're moving to Vegas. So.
Who's moving to Vegas?
Oh, the
owners that
Vegas
bought
people.
them are Vegas people.
Okay.
And they're like, the conspiracy is they're intentionally tanking them because they wanted to build a casino in Dallas, like connected to the arena, and they got shut down by the state. And then they're like, all right, well, we're just going to
move the whole team.
Oh, is that why Cuban? That's why Cuban took the money and was just right? Because the casino's not happening.
That's the conspiracy of like the casino won't happen in Texas because you can't gamble in Texas, and they're trying to
bigger in Texas.
They're trying to tank the value. I don't know. That's a lofty one, but
very interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know. Your team is worth a lot more if you have like a top 7 player in this league.
Agreed.
That's my opinion. Like,
that's my opinion.
Like, just Steph Curry built that. Remember how the Golden State Warriors before Steph Curry, like how bad that team was for decades.
Monte Ellis was out here doing his thing, man.
Yeah, I get it.
Baron Davis is out here doing his thing, man.
Tim Hardaway Sr. I get it. But you know what I mean, though, right? Steph turned and the big three there, Steve Kerr, all of it. They turned that franchise into arguably one of the most valuable entities in
Jackson. He always needs to be mentioned in this because Mark Jackson was one of the reasons that Steph Curry stayed there, because Steph Curry was almost out of the league with his goddamn ankles being in shambles, and Mark Jackson had faith in him and kept him around. So shout out to Mark Jackson for that.
Too bad he was a lunatic.
Yeah, there's that too. You don't know about that? Look that up. That's a interesting thing in itself. Yeah. It's funny how these stories and like storylines, like you get further away from them and you kind of forget like certain things happen leading up to them, and it's just like, oh, like that did happen. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that part. Yeah, very interesting. I also, before we leave, I didn't even realize until I watched the Clippers the other day. Like, it was my first time watching the Clippers. I did not realize that Jeff Van Gundy was back in the league coaching as an assistant coach. I said, when the hell did this shit happen? My man just gets booted from ESPN, and then he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to go back into coaching. And I know he was always like rumored to kind of try to like go back again and want to be a head coach, but I guess I'm assuming he has a real good relationship with Ty Lue. I'm assuming
he was there last year. He was there last year too.
Okay.
And they talked about like I think his wife died. Some accident happened. He's like, I have to get back into something. And they kind of gave him, a life raft. And
gotcha. Okay.
brought him on.
He was so good on TV.
Mm-hmm. He was.
If he doesn't go back into coaching, like hopefully
New York's very own, man. He's solid.
Absolutely is. Harrison, there's something that you wanted to mention before we left, and we almost forgot about it, and it should not be forgot about because it's the history of basketball about a particular person that retired, Harrison.
Hubie.
Yep.
Yeah. No, Hubie Brown. It was awesome watching yesterday. I watched that game before the Super Bowl, Bucks and Sixers, and it was Hubie's last game on the call. And Mike Breen gave him a nice shout out, said, you're like our NBA father. And Hubie took a moment. He said, I'm going to take a moment and have a tear. And it was like, damn, that hits you right in the feels. But Hubie he's a mainstay, man. Like he's been on color for so many years, and we all grew up listening to Hubie Brown call games, big games, and just his insight and knowledge of the game is second to none. And we're gonna miss him on the call. But
absolutely,
he's had a great career.
Absolutely, well said. Shout out to Hubie.
Yeah,
I just loved watching all the players prior to the game come over and talk to him for a moment before they went out there. Brooke had a long moment with him. Portis, so on and so forth, just taking time with him and respecting and understand his legacy. It's just very, very beautiful. And he got his first start with the Bucks, if I remember correctly, doing color commentating and whatnot. And so it's perfect that he ended with that too, doing calling a game for them. So yeah,
go out on your own terms.
Absolutely,
like that,
absolutely.
Yep.
So shout out to him.
Yeah.
Anything else you gentlemen want to say before we leave?
Go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to. I'm not gonna do it.
He can't finish it because he knows he's gonna mess up the words.
I'll save it for when we go back to back.
Well, I will let you guys know if I go to the parade, but go Birds. I'm very happy. If you didn't already,
I'm gonna need a ride.
You're not going to this thing.
Grease the
I will
poles,
tell
baby.
you, I am running off of 4 hours of sleep. I will tell you that for sure.
I don't even know what it would be like to win a Super Bowl, so I probably wouldn't sleep at all.
It's hard. I mean, this one was a little bit easier for me. The first time I cried, I absolutely cried the first time. I cried like a little bitch, but this one I did not cry, but I definitely was just like, you know what, this really, really happened. I was way more confident in this one than I was in 2023. So yeah,
they were better.
They were very happy. They felt way better.
Team.
Yeah. So, no crazy grass that was wet and left out there that was making it slippery. They were just on turf that they were actually really, really good on. So
New Orleans is great, man. What a great like host city.
Yeah.
Great.
I got a bunch of Eagles merch coming from the Super Bowl. My sister worked the game, so I got some stuff coming.
Sick.
So I will
I ordered my hat. I got my hat coming.
Nice.
All right, everybody on the podcast, you heard this from Harrison. So he said he's got his hat coming. So let's see what excuse he makes. Let's see if he says it gets lost in the mail. It got delivered to the wrong place. Somebody stole it. Let's see what excuse he comes up with. We have the receipts all together right now. So if he doesn't come on here with this, so now he's either got to do one or two things. He's got to actually go and buy a hat and waste his money on buying a hat, or he's just going to have to sit here and come clean, or actually three things, or just lie until he can't lie anymore. So we'll see how that happens. But Sam, you can close this out because the liar, we don't need to hear any more from the liar.
Someone shoot Harrison a promo code for Fanatic.
Yeah, Fanatics is out of control, bro.
Don't get me started on Fanatic.
Hey, Michael, if you're listening, Michael Rubin, want to send Hayes and Harrison some Eagles gear here, man.
Ah, gosh.
But no, what is this? 162 in the books. Hey, Hayes, congratulations!
Thank
Your
you.
team won the Super Bowl.
Thank you.
It finally happened on this podcast. I'm glad. At all things, I know the jokes aside, I'm glad. You know, if my team is going to be a complete dumpster fire, I'm glad to be able to have this journey with you over the last few years. It's been fun to watch. So congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Congrats, Hayes.
Thank you.
And you only, bro. It's been a good bit, but congrats to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate everybody out here that was going for the Eagles just for the strength that they did not want to see the Chiefs win. I was stopped so many times over the past 2 weeks by people saying, we just want to see you guys win because we're tired of seeing the Chiefs. And I think that was made evidently clear when they showed Taylor Swift on the Jumbotron and everybody booed her, which she said, what is going on, and was confused about it. So I don't think Taylor deserved that. Everybody shouldn't ask for the cameras to be put on her. I know I make jokes about it all the time too, but she's just there supporting her boyfriend.
It's the same thing with her. Like with Kendrick has I know he did an interview with Ebro for Apple Music.
Mhm.
Like Kendrick hasn't opened his mouth aside from his Grammy speeches since this whole thing started.
Well,
Like-
he did have a whole interview with Timothée Chalamet too, which is you should listen
I
to
didn't
that.
watch that yet.
Really
I heard-
dope. Very
yeah.
dope.
I heard that was great.
Mhm.
But aside from that, like throughout this whole thing, it wasn't like everything was on him, and he did the exact opposite of what Drake did. And like, yeah, Kelsey's like living the dream, but like Taylor Swift doesn't. Like she made her points clear about the politics
That was
after one of the debates and all of that. But like again, it's just she's just catches strays because of the platform she has. So like
when you become the cream of the crop, everybody
Yeah.
you become public enemy number one, no matter what you
Yeah.
do. It just is what it is. I mean,
It's
Patrick Mahomes is a
Yeah.
very likable guy. A lot of people hate Patrick Mahomes just because he continues to win, and Travis Kelce as well. That's it.
it's the Harvey
That's
Dent. It's the Harvey Dent. Like live
Yep.
long enough to see yourself become
Become
a villain,
villain,
kind
pretty
of
much.
thing. Like,
Well said.
and that's
That's you now,
But-
Hayes.
I love being the villain, so please continue to have me as the villain. It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's just really fun.
So for my Eagle fan friends, Hayes and Harrison, I'm Sam. Thanks so much for listening. Till next time, peace.
See you on Broad Street.
Mm.